In early spring, the American economy looked relatively stable, but by the month of April, consumer confidence violently crashed. This chart tracks the Consumer Sentiment Index. In March, it sat at 53.3. Weeks later, it plunged to a record low of 49.8. This sudden drop broke from forecasts. Economists projected a minor softening to 48.0, but the actual data was far worse. That anxiety is triggering synchronized pullbacks on Wall Street, eroding broader investor confidence. When numbers move this fast, Americans are reacting to a sudden threat to daily financial survival. The trigger for this nationwide panic is visible at every local gas station. This comparison of historical average fuel prices shows the scale. Retail gasoline has broken past $4 a gallon across the country. Diesel has surged past $5. For any incumbent party, a financial squeeze is dangerous. This specific price spike is peaking months before the November congressional midterm elections. Voters are reacting to the pressure. In recent polling, a majority of Americans are directly pointing the finger at Donald Trump and the Republican Party. But this localized political blame masks a larger geographical reality. The actual cause of the inflation crushing American wallets started thousands of miles away. To find the source of that $4 gas, we have to trace the supply chain out of the United States and look to the Middle East. The fuse was lit following the military strikes between the US, Israel, and Iran on February 28th, triggering a regional escalation. This map highlights the physical narrowness of the Strait of Hormuz. It is a critical geographic choke point for global shipping. Right now, it's locked down from both sides. Iran restricts passage through the strait, while the U.S. maintains a strict blockade on surrounding Iranian ports. This two-way naval gridlock traps a massive portion of the world's raw crude oil right at the source. By choking off the flow of millions of barrels of oil through Hormuz, the available global supply shrinks, forcing the cost of every remaining drop to rise. So when an American driver pays $4 at the pump, they are paying the premium of a frozen international shipping lane. High gasoline prices impact households directly, but the spike in diesel prices destabilizes the broader economy. Diesel powers the supply chain. When it spikes, the cost of operating ground freight surges, making the physical transportation of every consumer good more expensive. The inflation also hits the manufacturing sector. Petroleum is a mandatory raw ingredient for producing fertilizers, petrochemicals, and refining aluminum. The naval bottleneck for crude oil has mutated into an economy-wide inflation contagion, raising the baseline production cost of almost everything on store shelves. Consumers can feel this contagion spreading. Returning to the University of Michigan data, Americans are now bracing for high prices as a permanent reality. These side-by-side data gauges show the shift clearly. Consumer expectations for inflation over the next year jumped to 4.7%. Long-term expectations for the next 5 years rose to 3.5%. When people expect prices to keep climbing, lower and middle-income families are forced to cut daily consumption to absorb the hit. There is no domestic policy switch that can fix this. Until a permanent ceasefire is achieved and the Strait of Hormuz is fully reopened, that structural economic pressure cannot be relieved. But an electorate feeling a persistent financial squeeze rarely focuses on the complexities of international trade routes. They look for a scapegoat closer to home. This international standoff has engineered a massive vulnerability for Donald Trump. A military blockade halfway across the world has been weaponized into a domestic threat for the Republican Party at the ballot box.